Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Out Loud and On Purpose, the podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hargrove, and today we're going to be talking about kindness. This is part 2 in our series on kindness, and heck, we may just make a month of it. You ever known somebody that seemed to be naturally kind? What about somebody that was, at a very young age, a highly skilled athlete? Or they appeared to be a leader on a team in a team sport, and we say, man, they are just naturally gifted in that area. Well, in today's episode, we're going to take that apart, and we're going to determine whether that's something that can be true or whether it is a myth. Right here, right now, on this episode of Out Loud and On Purpose. Why don't you just come along and step in it with us? Well, welcome everybody back to this episode of Out Loud and On Purpose, where we're talking about kindness. And we started off last week kind of laying some groundwork about kindness and talking about the fact that it is an intentional character trait. It does not get developed accidentally, yet with a great deal of purpose behind it. Once again, this is Kyle Hargrove. I'm your host, and I am joined today by the dressed in black, as usual, to go along with her black glasses and her black hair and her black headphones, her black microphone, wonderful Miss Amy. Hi, Miss Amy. How are you?
Hi, Kyle. I'm good. How are you? You made me laugh.
We're half or more through July, and I'm hot. And I know we talk about that way too frequently. And people are probably tired of it, but
it's hot.
The struggle is real.
It is. It is.
Fortunately, we've experienced maybe the first little tendril of the super El Nino weather pattern and gotten a little bit of rain lately, but it's still hot. And
I don't know who's responsible for it, but I'm thankful we needed it.
Well, I do. I know it's a gift from God, and we do need it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm pretty sure that God gives us what we need when we need it, in spite of what we sometimes think. But there are a lot of things to be learned from those experiences. So what's one thing that stood out to you last week when we talked about kindness in general, and what it is, and today we're going to be talking a little more about what it is and what it's not. But just in terms of what we talked about and discussed last week, what stood out to you, if anything?
What stuck out to me was that there are different types of kindness, and
do tell.
We're talking about targeted kindness and broad kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And that stood out to me, that targeted kindness was the type of kindness that you show another person for whatever reason, for a specific situation, not necessarily a broad type, which would be being kind in your heart.
Yeah, where it looks like that's your personality.
That's your blanket.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're known for it.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's probably what I would have said too, just as far as, if I take one thing away, understanding the difference between those two. But to go along with that is they're both necessary.
Mm-hmm.
They're both absolutely necessary. And I don't want anybody to hear us saying that we should do the same and go the same length or to the same depths for people that we run into randomly that we would for our family members, because that's, they're limited resources when it comes to being kind. And sometimes just a small act of kindness to a stranger, to somebody that we don't know, have never seen, or think we haven't.
Letting somebody in on I-30 at 5:30 on a Monday afternoon is very kind.
Yeah. Or stepping out into the parking lot at the little supermarket and grabbing somebody's basket as they finish loading their groceries into the car as you walk into the store. Or
taking your own basket back.
Oh, it don't even get me started.
Oh. What a concept, huh?
Danny and I were in a store yesterday, and there was the question raised. It was one of those stores that has the poles on the carts. The question was raised by another individual, why do they have these poles on these carts? And my first thought was, because people are rude. Because the reason they have the poles on, it's like a flagpole with no flag on the shopping cart. So they can see their carts out in the parking lot when they're between cars. They know, I need to get all my carts in. It's a whole lot easier to find them if they have those poles sticking up.
Oh.
Yeah, because otherwise they're going to be hidden between cars in a parking lot. So, my first thought is because people are rude, because they'll take that car out there into the parking lot, unload their car, and just leave it there. And I think that, we talked about last week how easy and inexpensive it is to be kind. That is one of those things that requires nothing, literally. It requires nothing of you other than to make the decision that that's the kind of thing you're going to do as often as you see it and think about it. And the more you do it, guess what? You see it more frequently. You see the need for it, and you think about it more often.
What was that phrase you said?
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias.
Yes, ma'am. You see what you're looking for. And if you're looking for opportunities to be kind, you will see more than your share.
I've also heard that when you're dating somebody, one of the things, like if you go to dinner, one of the things that you look out for is, or not look out for, but you notice if they're mean to the waitstaff.
Yeah.
And that tells you a lot.
Yeah. And, that raises an interesting question, because there's potentially a lot of ground between being mean to somebody and being kind to them.
Sure.
But even that middle ground is like, well, are we intentionally going a little bit extra, even though maybe we didn't get everything we wanted, or get it as quickly as we wanted, or the way that we wanted, or something like that?
Right.
And if we stay in that middle ground, it's kind of like, I don't know, is that lazy? It could be. I don't want to be judgmental about it, but, I think we're either intentional about it and we do it, or we're not and we don't. And anything that falls in the middle is not intentional. Or maybe we're just, on the learning curve.
No,
We haven't gotten there yet.
I subscribe to it's black or white. When it comes to kindness, it is black or white in my eyes, in my mind.
Yeah. Yep. I wrote in my book, Out Loud and On Purpose, Kickstarting Your Intentionality, about an experience I had in kindergarten. And it was my first day. I was 5 years old. And my dad was to pick me up that afternoon. And he had never picked me up from school before. Therefore, it did not occur to him to do so.
Oh, no.
And so I'm standing there in the parking lot. And this was 1967. They didn't identify a teacher for the week that would make sure every child had been picked up from the property before they went home.
Oh, no.
So everybody was gone. That was probably an hour after school was out. And I was crying. I remember it.
You were there all alone.
Yes.
Everybody had gone home.
Yeah. And they had one of those, instead of having the concrete blocks at the head of each parking spot, they had a long 1 foot or 2 foot high pipe fence all the way down. And I was sitting on that fence.
Oh, my God.
Crying. And a young man, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 years old, came by riding a bike. And he heard me crying, and he stopped. And he asked me what was wrong, and I told him. And I had learned my address. And he asked me, do you know your address? And I told him. And he knew where I lived. He knew what street that was on. And so he threw me on the back of his bike, or he threw me on the seat, and then he stood up riding. We might have been 1,500 yards from my house. I don't know.
Right.
Or maybe it was a mile. I don't know. But he rode me home. And
incredibly kind.
And it's the first incident I remember that is so memorable that you can't forget it or not recognize it for what it is. And it was an act of kindness that didn't have to happen. And that, when I plug that in now to what I know and what I've learned in 64 years as a person and 33 years as a therapist, that response didn't come from whatever mood he was in that day, but it came from a choice that he made, and that mattered for me. It mattered greatly. It mattered even greatlier for my dad.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was an unpleasant evening in the Hargrove household.
Can't even imagine.
Yeah. But that kind of leads us to where I wanted to, to kind of camp out today. And that is that people think that kindness belongs naturally to folks with naturally gentle personalities. When in reality, I think more often than not, begins as a practiced interruption of our instincts. Let me repeat that. A practiced interruption of our instincts. Because our instincts are me. They're all about me. They're all about what I want, what makes me feel better, what's best for me. And there's a time and a place for what's best for me. There really is. It's important that we recognize that. But it's not natural for us to not be that. To be something different from that requires an effort. It's not instinctive to be kind on the regular. We may all respond in a crisis in the kindest way possible. But what about on the regular? What about every day? What about when we go to town in our little town of 1,379 people? There's never an opportunity. There's never not, an opportunity to exhibit even the lowest level of kindness to somebody when I leave my house and go to, I went to the pharmacy this afternoon, right next door to your business.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do anything super crazy or out of the way or anything, but I made it a point to speak to everyone behind the counter. And if I'm not in a hurry or tired or whatever, I park and go in instead of going through the drive-thru because I appreciate those ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to know that in spite of the fact that what they get most of the time, if somebody talks about them, is criticism and I didn't get what I wanted or I got something I didn't want, I want them to know they're appreciated. And that doesn't make me Superman or super godly or super anything other than that after lots of years of practice, it's something I want to be and want to do.
So where does that come from? Experience.
Right. It started my first day of kindergarten. No, it started long before that because I have unbelievably kind parents and grandparents.
So is that you're around kind people and you learn that behavior, or that you were treated unkind over and over and over and over again, and it is not acceptable for you to be that way to others, so then you are kind?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think when you are treated with kindness and respect, regardless of how old you are or how well behaved you've been, if along with that kindness comes teaching
Mm-hmm.
and explanation
Mm-hmm.
and facilitation of that,
Sure.
and the recognition in my behavior by the person who's responsible for raising me to say, Kyle, that was a very kind thing you did, and I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you.
Mm-hmm.
Or the antithesis of that, I'm wondering why you had the opportunity to be kind to your friend today and you chose not to. And as a kid, I might have thought my parents being mean to me because I didn't go out of my way to do something I didn't have to do.
Mm-hmm.
That may be the kindest thing of all, is to hold me accountable when I need to be accountable,
Mm-hmm.
even though it may not be perceived as kindness at the time. But I think that it started at that point. But I can tell you for a fact that the emphasis that my life has had on being kind is the desire to be like my parents, who my mother, until the day she unexpectedly died, was one of the kindest, maybe the kindest person I'd ever encountered, and most respectful. And my father, who is 86 years old, has made it his life's mission, at least in the second half of his life, because I don't remember much about the first half of his life. In the second half of his life, it's been his mission to teach, preach, and be the kind of person that we all wish people would be to us. Part of it is understanding the rewards once you decide to intentionally be kind and thinking that it's going to be a reward for somebody else, but it becomes a reward for you.
Mm.
Also, experiencing the consequences when you don't feel like being kind and you then consequently don't be kind.
Mm.
And that gets noticed as well. So there are a lot of different types and ways and paths that people take when they're deciding, is this the kind of person I'm going to be? Is it really even what I want to be? Or when you talk about that kid or that person who from a young age was treated disrespectfully, and that covers a lot of ground, they're probably going to take one direction or the other. They're going to either decide, I'm going to be the opposite of that when I grow up. As I grow and as I learn and as I develop, I don't ever want to be that way to anybody ever. Or they're going to crawl into a hole of protection, one that eliminates not just opportunities, but the desire to be kind to other people. I'm going to protect myself no matter what. And it doesn't mean I'm going to be ugly or mean or nasty. It just means I'm not sticking myself out there because I remember what happened when I couldn't help myself. So there are different directions that can go.
Mm-hmm.
One of the stories that I remember about something I decided as a child that I would never do, and then I did. I don't know if it had anything to do with kindness or not, but it's kind of a funny story.
Mm.
My mother, for all the wonderful and 99.9% pure, wonderful things that she was and did, had the habit of, and I understand why this habit evolved on her part, because I was the kid who asked why every single time, sometimes lots of times in a row. And she then developed the protective habit of saying, because I said so.
Oh.
And I remember vividly telling myself many, many times, I will never say that to my children.
Mm-hmm.
And probably for the first 4 or 5 years, I didn't, until I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it just came out of my mouth. I didn't think about it. I didn't plan it. I didn't prepare it. And my little guy, Adam, asked the why thing for the umpteenth time in a row. And I was frustrated already. I don't know why. And I said, because I said so. And I spent the next 30 minutes in the closet crying.
Mm-hmm.
I was so embarrassed of myself for doing the thing that I promised myself and the entire world quietly that I would never do. And then I did it. Don't ask me if I ever did it again, because I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Yeah.
But I know, once I did it, and it did two things. Number one, it showed me how weak I could be. And number two, it taught me something about my parents.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say, because I said so, because they didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
They said, because I said so, because they were tired of talking.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They were tired of explaining things.
Do.
To a 4-year-old monster who had the curiosity of 10 kids.
Yeah. What else do you say at that point?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
we're going to talk about the myth of naturally kind people and some additional virtues that go along with that, and a simple framework that will help you begin to develop the kind of character you want to have more regularly than you do right now. When we come back on the Out Loud and On Purpose podcast, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to our second segment today of the Out Loud and On Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hargrove, here with the indubitable Miss Amy.
The what?
I don't even know what that word means. I just am happy I was able to pronounce it and say it.
I have never been described that way before.
You probably should look it up. It may be something horribly offensive. I don't know, but I don't think so. But anyway, we've been talking today about, the myth of some things coming naturally to people, and most specifically kindness, and that it is something that, to develop it into an important part of your personality and an in-depth part of your character, has to be done intentionally. And it's not an accident. It's not natural. Nobody's born with it. Your personality may lend itself to that more so than other personalities, but to be kind as a personality trait requires intentionality and the decision to be that way. And I just wanted to remind everybody that real life kindness becomes visible in moments when the feeling of kindness is absent. And that's one reason that intentional acts of kindness are so important, because they don't depend entirely on what's easy emotionally or depending on our mood or how we feel. Deliberate acts of kindness are more often described as chosen, helpful responses rather than spontaneous personality spillover, explosion kind of stuff. So just a reminder there that this is a developed thing. And if you want to develop it, you're going to have to make the decision to do that and not think that it's just going to happen as you grow older and as you mature. So another thing that I wanted to make sure we throw in before we get too far down the road is it's the importance of words. And there are two words that are used synonymously that do not mean the same thing. And they are the words kind and nice.
Oh.
And I think we've also, we talked about having seen an emphasis corporately and otherwise on kindness counts and kindness matters and things like that. But I think that we've also seen, especially for men, we've seen an emphasis on articles and maybe podcasts and stuff on no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Hmm.
The cost that comes with being nice most, if not all the time. And that's in relationships. That a lot of men want to be nice and they want to please, And so that's all they do. And it ends up being very costly because not only do they learn to please and be nice every time, the other person learns to expect that. And when they don't get it, it's ugly. That's not a commentary on men versus women. That's just where the emphasis has fallen, because I guess of the term nice guy, Mr. Nice Guy. So there is a difference between being nice and being kind. And I kind of like it to kick that around a little bit.
Well, that's funny you should mention that. So I saw like a quote, like on Pinterest or Facebook or whatever, and I saved it because it struck me the second I read it. So I'd like to share it with you.
Oh, I'd love it.
Okay. So are you nice or are you kind? There is a difference between being nice and being kind. Being nice is living according to someone else's definition of what is socially correct. Being kind is figuring out what is in alignment with you, your values, your beliefs, and authentic compassion for yourself and others. Being nice will eventually deplete your energy. Being kind empowers you to step confidently into who you are.
Holy Toledo.
That's pretty powerful, right?
That's about as good as I've heard.
It struck me.
It is. And so take that back, though. Read those last two sentences.
Absolutely. Being nice will eventually deplete your energy.
Okay. And compare that to what I just said about no more Mr. Nice Guy. Because if you're just nice all the time to keep the peace and to please,
you're depleting your energy.
Your energy is going to be depleted quick, fast,
very
and in a hurry. Yes.
Yep. And then being kind empowers you to step confidently into who you are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. And I hope that whoever's listening is writing that down because it is, I couldn't have said it better at all. So to piggyback on top of the ideas that we're talking about are the what is kindness, what is niceness, what's the difference? Understand a couple of things there. I think one of the places this is going to show up most frequently is in relationships that involve one person who is expected to be or is responsible for the development of another person and that person. Most specifically, I can point to two types of relationships, and that is as a parent, being responsible for the development of your children and the child, and as a teacher, being responsible for the academic development and sometimes the personal development. Good teachers are going to take that into consideration, and they're going to take opportunities that present themselves to allow kids to learn a lot about themselves as well. And there is a sharp division between the younger, or let's just say the less mature individual in those dyads that does not have a healthy understanding of the difference in someone being nice and being kind. Because frequently, the more mature, educated, experienced person will do something, make a decision that is actually the kindest thing they could do for that younger, less experienced, less mature person. And it will not be interpreted that way on the other end. This comes after repeated offenses. If I have a child who repeatedly makes the same bad choice, in spite of the fact that we've stopped and we've talked it through and maybe there have been consequences, but it continues to happen, then they make that bad choice as a teenager and they get in trouble at school or maybe even with the law. To them, the nice thing is going to be for mom or dad to come along and get them out of trouble, talk their way out, promise that it'll never happen again. But maybe the kind thing for a parent to do, as difficult as it is, would be to allow that child to experience the consequences of their choice. Because until that happens, I'm pretty sure they're going to continue making that choice. So the parent is making a choice that is going to hopefully end up in the development of character in their child, and their child sees it as the parent being mean and unsupportive. Does that resonate or sound like things you've heard? Maybe even experienced with your own kids?
Of course. Even in school, there's a balance. You can be kind, but you have to be firm. I have a quote or a situation that my friend and I were talking about. And it kind of mixes the kindness and the firmness of the parenting situation you were just referring to. And say you're at the sink.
Okay.
And you're washing your hands.
All right.
And you got this bar soap.
Okay.
If you hold the bar soap too tight, too hard, you're going to lose grip because it's going to fly up out of your hands.
Fire it across the room.
Right. But if you don't hold it firm enough, if you don't hold it just right, it's going to slip out of your hands.
Yeah.
So it's the balance of the two.
Yeah. You got to figure out.
So you can be assertive.
Yes.
And be kind.
That's again, there's two words that are used synonymously. They aren't the same thing. Assertive and aggressive. If you hold that soap aggressively,
that's right. Mm-hmm.
People better be ducking because that thing could, fire across the room and knock somebody in the noggin. But if you're too gentle, it's going to fall out of your hands and drop into the sink.
That's right.
But if you're assertive with it, you put some pressure, but the right amount of pressure, then you can get the job done. I love it. You've been the man with the plan in the palm of your hand. I mean, you've had the analogies in the last couple of episodes. You're just
an analogy person.
I am too.
I love analogies. I'm visual. I'm so visual. And so analogies help me picture things to where they make sense.
Yeah. Well, as much as I love analogies, I have learned to appreciate, to an extent, the acronym. I was overloaded with acronyms as a school teacher, and then for a while as a therapist, and then working in contracts with the state of Texas, the government. It was like, oh my gosh, so many acronyms that you can't even remember what they mean. But I want you to imagine yourself as a card-carrying member of the NVA. NV as in Victor. Okay. Up to date, certified, sanctified, chicken fried. You are a card-carrying member of the NVA. If you are, it means you've used a simple framework about developing your kindness. It doesn't make you kind, it doesn't guarantee kindness, but it helps you develop it. And there are these three things. I want you to notice what? A person, a situation, or a need. They always involve people, but the way that you can be kind when you notice, maybe seeing something needs to be done and doing that thing, and you may not even know the person that it helps, but it's a kind thing to do. But if you don't notice, you're not going to be kind. The second thing is value, and this is about the person specifically. I want you to decide that person matters. I don't care who they are. I don't care if you know them or not. I don't care if you have experiences with them or not. I don't care if you like them or not. Recognizing that people you don't even like actually matter is a huge step of maturity to begin with, and personal development and character. Lots of checklists you can check that one off when you recognize that everybody matters, no matter how wrong they might be or what's wrong with them, in my opinion. They still matter. So if we decide that every person matters, then the last one, the A, is to act. Notice the person, the situation, or the need. Value the fact that they matter, and then do one small thing that reflects that value. Because if you and I have an interaction together and I value you, then I have the opportunity to see a need and do something about it. And it doesn't have to be a big, huge thing to solve a crisis or a life-changing event. It can be that thing that we talked about in the last episode with Patch Adams. He asked the guy, what do you see in me? And the guy just said, you fixed my cup. He didn't say, you're an amazing individual that has a potential out the wazoo. He said, you fixed my cup. That's all he said. But that was the most powerful statement he could possibly have made at that moment. So it's a small thing that reflects that somebody is valued. And at the beginning, when you're first starting your journey of saying, okay, I'm a reasonably kind individual. I think I'm kind more often than not, but I could use some work. Great. That's where most of us are going to find ourselves. Some of us are going to say, you know what? I'm a bitter Grinch, and that's what I'm known for. And I hate that about myself, but hey, it's better to be known for something than not known at all, right? I don't know if that's true or not. But even if you're that person and you're saying, I want to begin the journey of developing kindness, I know it's not going to happen overnight. I know I'm not going to snap my fingers or wiggle my nose or my ears, and suddenly I'm going to be kind. But at the beginning, all three of these movements, the noticing, valuing, and acting.
Okay, I have a question.
They're going to be conscious things. Okay, go ahead.
So, okay, let's take the example of the Grinch, the person that knows they could do better or they could be kinder, but I'm known for being
and they're not happy unless they're mad.
Right, yeah. Right.
Usually victimized.
Right.
Got a cause to stand up for and be angry about.
even they deserve kindness.
Yes.
For various reasons.
Yes.
How does the NVA work with someone who has that mindset?
It works when you put the NVA to work.
Okay.
With them.
Right. Notice they have value and they matter.
And then pick an action. Be kind to them, because the truth of the matter is that bitter, angry, unpleasant, nasty person usually gets the same thing in return. And if you're kind to them, you're going to stand out to them. You're going to make a difference to them. There's going to be something in their mind that goes, ding, that was unusual.
Like the guy in Patch Adams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For no reason at all, without being asked, just did something kind. You know, I remember my dad used to tell me, if you're going to mow our front yard, mow the neighbors too.
Oh, that's...
You know, and our yards weren't big. We were, you know, we didn't live on 0 lot line lots, but, you know, we might live on 1/5 of an acre, which is not going to make your, you know, it's a 20-minute job to mow somebody's front yard. I didn't have to weed eat it and go to the backyard and just mow their yard, mow their front yard. It's going to take you 20 extra minutes.
Right.
And that was the beginning of the understanding of kindness, just doing something kind for mankind.
Outside of yourself.
You know, the question I had is, Dad, we got 2 neighbors, 1 on each side. Do I have to do all 3?
Yes, son. That's exactly what that means.
A few times I did. But I carried that into my adulthood, and I shared it with my kids too. I don't think either one of them mow their yards, but they don't need that. So, but I hope that it carried over into other parts of their lives as well, into being compassionate. Because I think kindness carries with it a lot of the components of compassion.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the way that this person gets their kickstart into intentionality is someone like you or like me who understands and knows the need, treats them with kindness, maybe repeatedly, not because they deserve it in any other way except that they are a human being.
I used to live in a house that had, I was on a corner. My neighbor to the left of me had it was a fenced backyard, but there was like a strip of his yard, you know, that went beside mine. And there was a floodlight on the side of his house. I will never forget this. And it took me, my bedroom, of course, was the window right here, the light shining in, couldn't sleep. It was the whole thing. And because I am not a huge fan of confrontation, it took me 2 months and countless sleepless nights to ask this neighbor if maybe he could point it downwards more, and I did. I summoned up the courage. I went over there and I asked him very, very nicely. I was not mean. You know me. And he looked at me and he goes, "No."
Oh my.
And I was not prepared. And I turned around and walked off.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you mean no?
Yeah.
And I thought that was so okay. Like I get your stance, but really? No. Okay.
Yeah, if you're going to ask me, you know, why did he? I don't know. I got no idea why somebody would do that.
I mean, no, and the door was in my face.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
All righty then.
And I thought, you know, like I didn't come at him sideways. I just was, hey, here's the situation, and he just was not a very kind man.
What a maroon.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's. Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't unkind because they're cruel. I think they're unkind because they're moving too fast to notice.
Do you really think that?
Yes. I think people are moving. Sometimes they have so much on their minds. I mean, now, don't hear me wrong. They haven't made the decision to make the effort to be kind. All right, that's on them. But it may be out of ignorance. It may be that they don't know that it is an intentional thing. That's why we're doing this podcast.
If you're walking into a store, and I realize we're in Texas, we're in the South, and you're walking into a store and you notice someone behind you. Not that chivalry is, you know, as big as it used to be, but if a man or anybody for that matter doesn't hold the door open for me, if I'm right there and I'm struggling to get in, I have a problem with that. To me, that's moving too fast in life where you can't stop and hold the door open for a lady, anybody. Doesn't matter if it's a lady or not, but because I know I do, again, expecting myself out of other people, but I think that's such a small thing.
And I completely agree with you. But
it's
I
a big thing.
I want you to remember too, you see these T-shirts around these days, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but they say something like, remember that you don't know what somebody else's day has been like, or something like that.
Oh, right.
You see that, and I know that's wrong, but hopefully the idea gets across.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of that, and that's where I have a little bit of room to give somebody, because I don't know what pressures they're under. I don't know if they're fighting for custody of their children. I don't know if they're working 3 jobs just to make ends meet. I have no idea what they're going through. But the first thing I'm going to think is, well, you weren't taught well, or you got no manners.
Mm-hmm.
When I had the opportunity to work as a contractor with the Department of Defense, I was embedded on an Air Force base, a training base here in Texas, which trains not only the United States Air Force, but numerous other countries from around the world. So it's a cultural melting pot. And I remember answering a lady, an adult lady, I don't know, maybe her mid-30s. And every time she would say something or I would respond, I would say, yes, ma'am, or no, ma'am. And she would look at me like, what's wrong with you, dude?
Mm-hmm.
And finally she said, why do you say that to me? I said, say what? And she says, call me ma'am. And I said, ma'am, that is a sign of respect to you as a lady coming from a man. And that's the way I was taught. And, if that is offensive to you, that's unfortunate, because it is a sign of respect. And I hope that you understand that. I didn't apologize for it.
Good for you.
I didn't, and I won't, and I never will.
Good for you.
But sometimes, times change and things change, and you find yourself in situations where you're doing what you think is the most respectful kind thing you could possibly do, and someone, takes offense or exception to it. And that's just weird. But there are a lot of reasons, and we don't know what those reasons are. It's easy for us to assume what they are if someone's not kind. But the best thing we can do is say to ourselves, regardless of what the reason is, I need to be kind to them anyway. And not if they're abusing you or hurting you or harming you or threatening you or something like that. That's a different story. Sometimes being kind can mean setting firm, hard, fast boundaries. So, but I want to leave everybody with this thought today. And I'm not going to say a lot about it. I just want to leave it and tell you that before kindness becomes a habit, it is almost always a disruption. And let's say it again. Before kindness becomes a habit for you, it will almost always be a disruption to you. And that's a good thing. Thanks for joining us today on Out Loud and On Purpose. We hope that you'll tune in next week and catch us again. But for now, this is Kyle Hargrove, your host. You're with Miss Amy, the co-host. And we want to tell you, have a great day.
Have a great day, guys.
See you next time.